This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Today is May 30th, 4:30. It's a meeting of the Public Safety Building Committee, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. And first thing is it's open to public. I see no public here to add any comments. So the next one is to review the meetings from May 22nd. Have people had a chance to review the meeting minutes? Any comments?
They're here if anybody needs them.
Was the November 11th date correct, Cindy?
Oh, I didn't go back to look. Maybe somebody else knows the answer to that. I'm sorry. Is that the correct date? I believe it's what was said in the meeting. Fourth bullet point down, last sentence under the first paragraph. We were reminded that per the RFQ, the final feasibility study is to be completed by November 11th.
And I pointed out to Cindy that the service schedule in the HKT proposal noted November 22nd.
Do you have the copy of the original RFQ?
I brought a RFQ with me.
Okay, what was on that table?
Contract. Pages here.
It looks like a table.
Yeah, there's the table.
Oh, there's
here.
the table.
But then I see execute contract by April 27th.
To complete the study by November 22nd. So it should be November 22nd.
Correct.
Thank you. Is that okay with everybody? We change it to November 22nd?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes as modified?
So moved. Oh,
Seconded.
Christina moved to, and then seconded by John O'Shea.
Any other comments? All in favor?
aye.
All opposed? Passed unanimously.
I'll abstain, obviously.
And one abstention.
I guess we should have opened up the meeting with our new representative from the select board. Chris Fowles is here, obviously, to take over for Maureen. Maureen, we're glad to have you. So this will be good. And the last meeting, we had hoped to have a formal proposal of HKT, and hadn't arrived, but it did arrive an hour after our meeting was over.
I think it was actually even less than that.
Yeah, a few minutes after our meeting was over. So we do have a specific contract proposal from HKT. I assume people have had an opportunity to look at it and review it, and I guess we need to go through and see what our comments are, and our intent was to review it and then make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen as to how we, as a committee, felt about the proposal. Anybody had opening statements or comments regarding the proposal from HKT?
I can start by saying that during the interview, I believe my memory is that one of their comments was that we had asked for a lot. And I would like to hear from them, or I would like to have the select board work with them to try to work it down to the essentials, because I think that this is too much, more than necessary. And we certainly have to get it below budget, or within the range of budget. But I would like to see if we could reduce it even further. And my guess is that they would be able to whittle it back and pare out some of the non-essentials, or the things that go beyond what is necessary to get our job done. But that's not our job. That would be in the negotiations with the select board. That's not to say that we can't go through and make some guesses, but they're the ones who said we asked for a lot, and to my mind, it would have been helpful to have them with us tonight to talk to us about where they thought we were asking for excessive information.
Well, I think we did have a Zoom meeting with them, and I think, and discussed, they asked a lot of questions about.
That was you and Rini and Ed.
Correct.
Yeah.
And they just specifically asked questions about what the scope was, and I think we agreed to whittle down certain things of the process.
The three of you agreed
Yes.
already?
Right. I think one of them was to minimize the amount of green infrastructure discussion, not make it big. The other thing was to get a ballpark for the operating costs rather than trying to get specific. So those were a couple of the items that they talked about, trying to reduce the scope of work. Also, the public information process, turning most of that over to us and having them do less of it. They budgeted, I think, how many hours, a certain number of hours to do the communication portion of the project.
There were 60 man-hours I saw in there. somewhere.
Yeah.
So this you consider to be the whittled down?
Well, again, this is
Proposal.
their proposal. I mean, we can always take it one step further.
Right, but I'm just asking, this, you already have reviewed it to the extent where they have taken out portions that, or you've agreed to taking back some of the labor involved.
Correct, yes. So that this is partially whittled down on many more. Ed, you have a comment?
I do. I'm going to say out of that Zoom meeting, up front in the meeting, I specifically asked them that at that meeting, they said that we had asked for an awful lot and that they didn't think that some of the things that we had asked for were needed in the feasibility study, and I asked them straight out what they were, and they skipped right over that and said, oh, let's start off by asking you some questions. So it's, in my mind, no, they didn't respond to that.
Okay.
I have wondered about task 7, and that's the evaluation of existing facilities.
I felt the same way when I read this. So I think that could be pared down.
Or, yeah, or possibly eliminated, I
Yes,
don't
I
know.
think almost like us as a committee can do that.
I mean, they talked about looking at comparison with Granby and Williamsburg, and you've already talked to Williamsburg, have you not?
Yeah, well, do it, yeah.
And Granby too, or not?
We had a
visited
site
Granby.
visit
Visiting
to
Granby,
Granby.
okay, well, I mean, that seemed like, if you guys have already done that, why have them do that too?
I think
Maybe they could take the information, because they talk about a deliverable here, about a PowerPoint presentation, comparing the three, but,
the intent was to help facilitate a public document that we could make a good comparison of. I think we, sort of as a committee, know, but we wanted the final report from HKT to give a good description so that when the public read it, they would understand
Right.
the difference in the comparisons.
yeah.
I think maybe, I mean, my first thing is having prepared these for, you always look at the last line there, when they have a budget for each one of those
Yeah,
sort of thing.
that's where I go to.
Yeah, and, you know.
Working a wiggle.
My first one was a kickoff visioning meeting, was they were gonna come to us and have a kickoff meeting, you know, not to be worried about pennies, but $5,000 for a Zoom call seemed a little bit expensive. The kickoff meeting, they said they could come here, but I don't know why we couldn't do that Zoom. It seemed like an awful lot of money for a Zoom meeting, but this is just a starting point of trying to think about their.
Oh, I agree with that.
And then I think, I would maybe suggest that we go down on that last sheet on the task and sort of see if those numbers seem larger. Maybe we can ask them to quantify a little more what.
So the kickoff meeting would be different than task number 2, a little further down, which is site evaluation, which when they actually come here and they need to see the locations.
Right.
See the facilities as they
Task
are.
1, that's space assessment, that's a different thing altogether. That's
Yeah.
looking at the current fire
Well, there's
station.
both. There's
Right.
below that too.
Yeah, task 0, they quantified as an additional task that we had asked for at the Zoom meeting. We had mentioned, maybe let's come in and sit down and thought to get it as a committee and discuss how we're going to proceed. And they threw it in as an extra task for $5,000, which I thought, would be an hour conversation, or 2-hour maybe conversation. That's $2,500 an hour, which is a little bit extreme, I thought. But if they traveled out here, there's travel expenses, et cetera. And the principals, if you saw the principal of the firm, the hourly rate is, $230 an hour, so they need to be cognizant of their fee.
How about at least, I agree with you, I think it could certainly be a Zoom meeting, and also get them to, I would ask them to justify that cost.
So they've got for Task Zero, they've got one in-person meeting, and that's what they're charging the $5,000 for?
Yes.
5,800.
I don't see why that can't be a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, I think that would be a suggestion. My first suggestion was,
Yeah.
let's convert it to a Zoom, and then
Yeah.
and accordingly, 5,000 should go down to
Yeah.
500 or 1,000 maybe.
Was it in person because it was with the community at large as well, as part of that description?
I think the kickoff meeting was just with us.
Just with us.
Just
Yeah, but
with
it
us.
says community at large. Yeah.
Oh, does it say community at
Yes.
large?
Yeah, under
Okay.
the first bullet point of Task Zero.
And the committee at large.
Okay.
I don't think we're quite ready for the community at large.
Right, I think it's
Do you agree?
premature to present something we don't have anything to present yet. So.
It would seem like they need to do Task 1, which is the space needs assessment. To come here and actually look at that and get a sense of the current facilities and have a good talk, and then maybe from there facilitate a meeting. But yeah, it seems a little bit out of order to me there, a little bit. Coming in cold on this, but this is my first reaction.
Yeah.
In other words, eliminate Task 1
Says zero.
kickoff visioning meeting and jump to the direct meetings of space assessment and site evaluation.
I think Task Zero got blown out of proportion by HKT.
Does everybody agree with that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I think in Task Zero, at a minimum, I'd say a Zoom. And if they really insist that there has to be some kickoff meeting, but otherwise, can they even eliminate a kickoff meeting? I mean, it's probably standard procedure, right, that they do those kinds of things, but.
If I'm a firm, I want to find out where I'm starting from. It just
Yeah.
makes sense to have a meeting in minds.
The only thing I think important about the meeting, this initial meeting, maybe just within the community at large, is the committee informing them of what we're specifically looking for and how, cost efficiency, to me, this is my own opinion, is cost efficiency is going to be very important with this. We have to show that we're being efficient as possible with costs. Otherwise, it's not going to, I don't believe it'll happen.
Yeah, I think the committee has to have a face-to-face with
Yes.
HKT. That's basically what it is.
In Task 1, though, Chief, they do say that HKT will then meet with the police and fire, members of the police and fire departments.
What I think I meant by that was, that's the needs assessment, meaning like, I may need, 2 cells or 1 cell or, a smaller dispatch center. But I think it's important at some point earlier on, whether it can be at that point or not, but that kickoff or envisioning meeting, we relate how important the cost efficiency is, and how it might outweigh aesthetics. It might, depending on. So they look at other engineering designs or to be as cost efficient as possible. I think that's what I'm.
So, I don't mean to be monopolizing here, but I'm going to just ask, so you are of the opinion that that meeting should occur as a Zoom just with the committee?
I think it's just a place where we impart that information to them. Is this that meeting, right? Because, and I only look at, like, when I did a site visit to Wichita at one point, it was aesthetically pleasing, but the back of that building, a lot of it was a steel building, right? And you couldn't see the steel building, but it was, it was not as aesthetically pleasing as East Hampton's public safety, right? An all brick building. We're in the center of the community, where this was In the front, it looked nice. In the back, it didn't look ugly, but they went with low cost as possible to get it done.
Well, West Hampton certainly went with the most
Yeah.
modest possible
Yes.
exterior, but it's still, I mean, it's not objectionable.
No, no.
It's not great, but it does, it serves the purpose.
serves
You
the
know,
purpose.
they've got a new
So I think as
facility.
a committee that we have to discuss, what are we looking for here? Are we looking for a building that might not be attractive, but very cost efficient, or maybe a mixture of both? I don't, maybe wouldn't that be important as part of their design?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Their initial approach.
Well, I think maybe to make it more clear, we need to modify Task Zero to have a Zoom meeting to get the feeling of the committee, so we can have a one-to-one talk with HKT and sort of outline sort of our vision of how the project ought to go.
Yes.
And I think we can accomplish that in a 2-hour
Mhm.
Zoom meeting. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
my
And maybe-
suggestion is to simplify that and.
Yeah.
But that might not cut down tremendously on the price, because they're also planning, as a result of that, it's a deliverable, visioning, presentation, and draft project schedule. So is that part of the Zoom meeting, or is that after the Zoom meeting that they would come up with this visioning, presentation, and draft project schedule? Are they going to say that was part of the $5,000?
Yeah, I guess, going back, I think modify Task Zero. Task Zero is an addition to the original proposal. I think we would say, well, the addition now, we define Task Zero as a 2-hour Zoom meeting just to
Yeah.
get
Yes.
a relationship developed between the committee
Yeah.
and HKT.
Right,
But
and they had this in person, right? So their hourly rate is going for their drive.
Right, right.
Two-way travel,
So
4
we can-
hours, it's 4
we can-
hours of travel
yeah.
time.
That's
We can use them better on other tasks in person. We're going to need them for those kind of tasks, whereas this one, I don't think is crucial. Yeah. I would say the part of the deliverable still should be a draft project schedule.
We
Yes.
have that, though, in the original
Yeah,
proposal.
but how they've laid this out, maybe a little bit differently.
The
I
deliverable
mean, how
has
much
to be
time each of
somewhere.
these tasks are going to take, is how I interpreted that.
More specifics than what was laid out initially. Is that what you're
So,
thinking?
you know, is the task
That was-
assessment going to take X number of weeks, or, you know, what? I
That
mean,
was
it's-
all laid out in the schedule.
And we would request a
Well, we
task
can reconfirm it.
for the proposal.
Re-verify it.
We asked
Oh,
for a
yeah.
proposal, but a
Right.
schedule in the proposal, which they gave us a quick one, yes.
Well, it was a full-page chart with every task.
You're talking
given a
about
date.
what they got back to us, not what was in the RFQ.
No,
they
what
sent
was in
back.
the RFQ.
Oh, okay, well, reconfirm it then. So it wouldn't take a new amount, and any additional amount of time to do it, because they've already done it.
Well, that's where I got that information last week, that the due date was November 22nd. It was a full chart, page chart with every task outlined with a date on it.
But
I'm
just
sorry.
in their cover letter though, tasks may not be completed in order as presented below. We envision following a task order as outlined in our schedule RFQ response, but the schedule will be updated with revised dates in collaboration with the building committee at our
Okay.
kickoff meeting. So
Okay.
it's more
A revision, then, it's not
verification or whatever.
a revision of the project schedule rather than presenting a draft, I
Yeah.
would say.
So we would include the updated schedule in the Task Zero. They have to lock their charges in some location, so.
So what I've got for the minutes is we've agreed, I believe, we didn't have a motion, but we agreed that we would request a modification of to a 2-hour Zoom meeting and a revision of the project schedule.
Correct.
Okay.
We'll go through all of them before we make motions. So. So that was Task Zero. Moving on to Task 1. They had an on-site meeting and then a Zoom meeting.
And they're talking about a full day. Do they need a full day?
Well, it's
tour.
call it 4-hour round trip. And
Okay.
then they'll be here for hopefully more than a couple hours, so that's
Makes
That's
sense.
6
then.
hours, so by the time you stop for lunch and everything else, it's probably close to 8 hours.
And they said that they're going to tour the existing facilities and interview members of the department, right?
Okay.
Mhm.
So, give them a solid half day for sure, to do just that part.
Right. And then they have to put it all together in
Yeah,
some type of report.
a report back to the committee, right?
Right. So,
I didn't think that was terrible. I mean, I think the more that they can get a sense of how the existing conditions are, the better, so that they can understand where we're coming from.
right. And I think they learned a lot too,
Yeah.
talking to everyone here during those visits, more of an idea of what we anticipate for scope of work.
Okay.
Then task number 2, site evaluation, I thought what they talked about seemed reasonable, but I think we have an awful lot of existing information from the senior city process. And they have $22,000. And I know they're probably bringing in outside consulting engineers and civil engineers charge a lot of money. So they probably went and talked to their sub-consultants, and each one came back with a budget about what they were going to do.
I don't know how to modify this or what to recommend. I'm looking for input from you engineering experts, but this seems like a pretty critical one to have, though, all the things they say they're going to do.
Well, definitely the wetlands and the stormwater drainage have got to be dealt with just by our own bylaws. I mean, if nothing else.
Right. But I'm also saying that we have the same 4 sites as the senior city.
Yeah.
And they've already done exploratory test pits on
Yeah.
some of the sites.
And they're not starting from scratch, in other words. So,
Correct.
and maybe they don't realize that. I mean,
Well, I think we gave them the full report from the senior city.
We told them that for sure.
Yeah.
I think some of the firms might not want to, they would want to verify the information that we gave them, rather than just take it like, this is true, then they would be liable.
But does that mean, is that a shorter amount of time usually, Mark, that where it's not, they're taking that information and confirming it as opposed to redoing the whole process? Or
Most of the time, they just redo it because they don't.
for their own liability?
They don't know the people who did it. Sometimes they want to take that chance.
Just going through their phase 1 environmental assessment, they said they're just going to do a database search, which essentially get on the website to DEP and check that. Wetlands assessment, they're going to use what is available on, say, again, the DEP website and what's on the town sites. They're not going to go out and actually flag the wetlands. The next bullet point down,
they're going to prepare a wetlands constraints map.
yeah, essentially just shows the 100-foot buffer zone, or just a
The stormwater drainage, they actually specifically state they're going to use the Langen engineering report, which was done for the senior center
Oh, yeah.
feasibility study on April
Yeah.
11th of '23.
And then site utility, we're going through this very quickly. Site utility, we have electric and water. That's what we have for, and cable television. Basically, it's our total utility capacity for the sites, and that should not be a long-term process to do. I just think it seemed like an awful high number for the quantity they're going to, and vehicle access. You stand on each site, having done this myself, check visually the site distance and check on Google and come up approximate what the site distance is, safe site distance for each one of these. I just think they need to come back and break this down a little bit. I think the $22,000 seemed a little high.
Could we ask them just to pare it down, to reconsider that and
Yeah.
keep essentially the same tasks, but to reconsider the costing or the time of Time allocated to each
time
task or
allocated to each
something?
one of those. It doesn't seem like it would take more than a couple of days to do, most of it's computer research, online computer data research.
Can we give them a number to say, do this for 18,000 or 15,000? Or is that reasonable to say something like that?
They're budgeted at 26 now.
Yeah. And we can always, another option is to, this whole contract process is hourly not to exceed, but that's a dangerous slippery slope as well.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. They'll get hung up on one item and spend inordinate amount of time. Oh, we ran out of money on task 3, we don't have any money left for 4, 5, and 6. So I think I would, rather than tell them a dollar amount, ask them to reevaluate it based upon what we interpret to be mostly digital research of the properties versus actual a lot of field work. That we just felt that the number was a little bit high. Could they reevaluate that?
It's fine.
Now, these are the recommendations to the select board who will carry out the negotiations, right?
Correct.
I'm wondering, can
We, the town administrator, will carry out the select board. I don't know that we're going to be talking to them.
Well, actually,
Oh, I thought-
actually, if I remember correctly, that task was given to Mark Greeny and myself, which would now be Mark,
Oh.
Christine, and myself.
Okay, so
You tell me
you
there's a
all,
catch-22 here.
you all being here then are well aware of, and can actually, I mean, it would behoove, or it would be beneficial if all of your input could go directly to HKT. You know, what you were saying, if they could hear that, rather than, I was under the understanding that the select board would be negotiating the terms. So that answers my question.
We'll discuss later how we would technically accomplish that negotiation.
Right.
So just before we leave that task, how many days did they, or how many, their deliverable was site assessment reports and one in-person meeting with the building committee to review the site findings, one to follow up on the ranking. Where's the one about coming out to see the sites? Am I in the wrong section? This is right, 2, number 2, task 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's defined under the very first paragraph. Isn't it?
Well, the task, are you asking for the task 2 deliverables?
Well, are they
What are their
coming on
proposals?
site for those, for task 2? Is what I'm asking. Because it says the deliverables and task 2 meetings, one in-person meeting with the building committee to review site findings and rank sites. So I guess, and one virtual to follow up, continue ranking of sites if required. I mean, I assume they're coming out to look at each of the sites in person? Or is
Well,
that,
on wetlands, they said they will conduct a preliminary site visit to evaluate if the map wetlands are in the area. So they are proposing a site visit to confirm the GIS wetlands versus the real world wetlands.
So it's actually, at this point, 3 in-person meetings. Task 2 is a meeting, task 1 is a meeting.
Well, they summarize the meetings in each one of these.
Yeah, exactly, so I'm just counting the number of meetings.
no, what confused me on task 2 meetings, it says one in-person meeting with the building committee to review site findings and rank sites. So is that happening the same day that they go to visit the sites?
I don't think they're gonna do physical site evaluations.
That doesn't sound it, that's why I'm
Okay, so,
misunderstanding.
Because otherwise they would, I think it would indicate like they did in some other tasks that they would meet with town officials.
Right.
You know, I guess this is a site visit to evaluate the wetlands, and then we have the site meeting and visit, maybe 2 different
But again, could that in-person meeting just be changed to a Zoom meeting?
That's what I'm wondering, yeah.
Some of their meetings are combined. They're combining
Yeah.
more of the, site valuations and visits, the task numbers, I think will be combined in some of their in-person meetings and talk about more than one thing.
What is ASTM?
American Testing Materials Society.
Okay,
It's a
so that's like.
technical format.
For the environmental stuff, so in that one, so under the first bullet, I'm sorry, under site evaluation, we will also conduct field visits at each of the sites and interview town officials with respect to historic use of the properties and any knowledge of past uses or releases of oil and hazardous materials. So I guess,
There's not calling it a meeting, they're calling it a field.
yeah, okay. But anyway, that's all encapsulated in their cost for phase task 2, rather.
And which bullet point was that under, Chris?
Number 1 under that ASTM environmental, the last, last part of that. It's on page 3.
But according to what Mark Mancino just asked, could that be combined with the initial site visit or not? Does that have to be a separate trip out?
I think the original site visit would be from HKT primarily.
Oh, and these are
interviewing
their
people,
subcontractors.
their
Probably
subcontractors.
Oh, I
site,
get ya. Okay.
Specialists who would be
Yeah.
evaluating specifically for wetlands
Right.
or hazardous materials.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Well, I think we just, I would agree with you, just to go back and see if they can just take a look at their costing and see if that's anything that they can pare down a little bit for us, but not give them a dollar figure to work with.
Yeah, we've run into trouble
Yeah.
before restricting.
Yeah, okay.
Amounts.
Yeah.
Task 3. So this task 3 is the biggest cost one.
Yeah, and that's the bulk of the work.
So if there's trimming to do, maybe it can come there. Maybe? I don't know.
Have we discussed whether we actually want two test fits, 2 options, or are we trying to zero in on a site and then get them to present 1 test fit?
I think previous discussion, we had discussed, we had every site in town, we narrowed down to about 5. And then we wanted to say, okay, now we got the top 2, we need to be able to comparison of the 2 sites. I think, for example, if we had the existing site here compared with somebody else, one of the other sites, I think the public wants to see the cost differential between one and the other. If we just say, no, we like site B and this is the cost, I think somebody's gonna come back to, why didn't you pick site A, and was it too expensive or
Right.
not?
But and I wasn't referring to the site selection. I know we need 2 site options, but they're saying in the first bullet that they would be 2 test fit options will be developed for each of the 2 site possibilities.
That's an interesting question.
So does that mean, okay, define a site fit for me, does that mean how the building looks
Arrange.
on the parcel?
Right, 2 arrangements.
Okay.
Are you
each site.
talking septic or something else?
It doesn't say, I mean,
Because for septic, you are required to do 2.
Yeah, but I think that's, I'm gonna push it off to the side of the site. I think they're talking more of the 2 concepts of a building. They're just doing block diagrams, early on block diagrams. If we put this one type of block
Right.
diagram can we get a parking lot in there?
Right.
Well, let's try another
If
type
we enter
of
from the,
parking
from the east versus whatever, it's kind of
Yeah.
thing, yeah, okay.
So, Mark, are you saying that 2 options would be beneficial?
I think so. I mean,
Okay.
just, that's the, to be honest with you, they're gonna try 20 of them on a charrette in the office.
Okay.
And they're gonna
And
wear it
present
down
to-
to 2 best ones, and they need to show us those 2 best ones.
Great, okay.
I mean,
thank
it's
you.
a paper trace on top of a map,
Mhm.
and they're gonna narrow it down, and then hopefully they can present it to us, and have justification, you know, this is the building on this site, this is the building on that site. We'll have some kind of discussion to justify and help them line
Great.
up.
So there'll be 2 fits per 2 sites?
Correct.
Okay.
There'll be 4 sketches, basically.
4
2
sketches.
sites, each site will have 2 block diagrams.
Which I think, if I remember correctly, them demonstrating, building up versus building out.
Correct.
They specifically mentioned how building up may not necessarily be, that might be cost effective. Maybe that's what they're.
And building up changes the parking circulation, everything
Right.
else.
Right.
And adds
and the
other
cost.
costs like an elevator. But
But
it might be
help with.
it might be a trade-off.
efficiency, you know.
Yeah.
Again, I think we need to be able to say, this is why we focused on this for the town
Yeah, I
meeting.
agree
We
with
had
you.
these
Yeah.
options.
Yeah.
We didn't just pick this one and then,
Right.
well, we just thought that was best.
Right, right.
So part of the cost is that not only will HKT do it, but then PAIR will assist with the development of the test fits.
Right.
Is the second 0 bullet point there.
HKT is the architect. They're going to look at the building, the space needs
Yeah.
assessments. And PAIR is primarily the site designers. They need to be able to figure out what the parking lot is, what the circulation is, what the site distance is, where the, leave some room for a septic system.
Okay.
And they developed the preliminary site plan, so that's all you're referring to. What you're referring to.
Well,
And then, so for each of these 2, then they're gonna do building cost estimates.
but it assumes that the building committee will have information on potential cost of developing. I mean, do we have any sense for what we can spend at this point? Do we know what the public will accept?
I think we have to come in with, we think is the bare bones. I don't
We know 7 years ago, they didn't accept 10 million.
Really?
I know. Uh-huh. We don't have like a budget at all.
We can't, we have
Probably
nothing.
about 13.5 million inflated down.
I think you're low.
Yeah, exactly, I think so too.
Do we need to let them know that we
Well,
don't have a round number budget at this point? Because
I
I
think
think,
we need to, we need to get the building, like the chief was saying, as cost effective and functional as possible,
Mm,
and no bells and whistles. And whatever that costs today, tomorrow could be different, but I think they just have
yeah,
to sharpen their pencils and come up with the best they can for what we want, and we're the ones who will be able to tell them that that's too much, or we need to adjust that before it goes to the town.
Right.
Yeah, so, and what they've said in here, Cindy, is that since the conceptual design will not yet be begun,
mhm.
the cost estimator will need guidance on assumptions to make in developing cost estimates. So that's the time that I think the committee's got inputs to say, hey, guys, we don't have $15 million to spend, or
Yeah.
whatever,
So we're not doing cut granite, we're doing,
so something.
But we don't even really know what the town, we don't have an idea of what the town is
No.
willing to spend.
We don't have
well, I
that.
think that's the feasibility study. We have to figure out what are our needs, and then there's a cost
Yeah.
associated with fulfilling
That
those
first
needs.
meeting too, right? Because if I remember correctly, they designed some beautiful buildings. I think they did some buildings, was it Nantucket or, where?
One of the islands,
One of the
Martha's
islands
Vineyard,
where,
yeah.
Their revenue is significantly different than here, right? So there's every house there is over $1 million.
Yeah.
Well, they also, in their presentation, they came across as realizing that community support is absolutely key, so we should hope they'd be willing to
So
take
basically, whatever they say is going to be cost, it has to be so clearly justified that we can present it to the community as to why. Even though we don't have approval to spend X number of dollars, we have to sell it. We have to sell it to the community.
And that's where in this same task, they talk about developing communication tools. I mean, up until this point, given that we've eliminated the possible community at large meeting in task 0, there's no interaction as of yet now with the larger town community. So feels like that needs to get in there.
I know, and I know with the senior center, there was a visioning. There were 2 or 3 actually.
There were 2 of them.
There were two visioning meetings. I wonder if, I don't know what the time, where we are in terms of scheduling. Are we in August or September at this point? Where are we?
Well, I
Yeah.
think the third last bullet point there is that they're going to facilitate public meetings with the community to report on project progress.
Is this
during
under task,
3.
which task 3?
It's on task 3. It's the
Okay.
Yeah.
third to the last bullet. on
Oh,
task
third to the
3.
last, okay.
It's, so they're going to, at that point in time, we're going to have some kind of a meeting similar to what they did with the senior center. They filled up the
Right.
school auditorium and say, here's where we are, here's where
that's-
we're progressing, and this is how it's going.
It's going to be our job to create that, to make sure the town at large is fully invited, that every household knows they're invited. Maybe we need videos of what it looks like now, if they haven't already done public walkthroughs of our current facilities.
I mean, I think the difference is, I don't know, I mean, I was at the first senior center one at least, where that was really getting community input about what the community wanted, because that's obviously a different use kind of facility, right? I mean, the public is really gonna be involved in using it on a daily basis, whereas we're maybe one step removed from, the fire and the police are really heavily the ones that are inside that building all day long, rather than the people from the town coming in and out, but
But it's still our job in HKT
Yeah.
to get the message out of
Gotcha.
why we need all of this in the building to get to whatever the cost is.
yeah. So I mean, it feels like there's gotta be some community outreach or something happening way before we get down into 3. And I just don't know where it fits, but.
I think we did talk about it before, and the complication of getting a visioning session with the public on a public safety facility, because it really is, when people start giving their input, the community at large, it muddies the waters about what the 2 departments actually need and have to have. That's not to say that we can't start engaging the community, but I don't know how much input as far as visioning goes should come from.
Yeah, we're not envisioning. I mean, I think we have to rely on police and fire to
Exactly, I
say,
do
this is
too.
what we need. Here's the bare minimum. We need to function and be safe and protect our staff. right?
It's called the start of marketing
Yeah,
the project.
yeah.
Right. Right.
But you've got to be starting to build community support for the idea. I mean, it kind of came up the other night in our other meeting, where people finally stood up and say, people, we're so cheap in this town. If you want an override, you want safe facilities, you got to vote for the overrides, And so people were very vocal at the end of our public meeting that we had, whatever it was last week, but we've got to be able to build on that momentum somehow and work on a sort of a parallel communication strategy or something.
Well, they are saying that they will assist the town in developing communication tools to present the conceptual design
Yeah.
and project process to the community, and then talks about, they found it's very important, and they're specifying it'll take 60 man-hours for developing site and floor plan renderings, the models, and the poster boards. But yeah, if we're going to create brochures or mailers, that's a separate cost altogether. The brochures and mailers that would perhaps go out to every household.
So during this task 3, though, they've got 3 in-person meetings with the committee, 3 virtual meetings with the committee, and 1 in-person public community meeting. So it would be good to see this broken out month by month or week by week or
exactly.
whatever it's going to be.
Schedule.
Yeah, yeah.
And not to going around circle, but going to the task force has 5, project cost estimates and schedule and project operating costs. I think at any time we have a public meeting, the first question that's got to come up is what's the cost? So I'm assuming that they say in an opening letter that these tasks are not necessarily going to go in sequential order.
Right.
We need to
right.
have the costs that would be included with the task 3 deliverables.
Right.
In terms of paring down task 3, which is the large one, I don't know if, do we think we need at that point 3 in-person meetings just with our committee, in addition to 3 virtual meetings with our committee? I wonder if we can do more virtual meetings and fewer in-person meetings, and that might not take off a lot of cost, but it might reduce it somewhat. I think I remember Rini saying, and you could probably confirm this, Ed, that Abacus came out here 3 different times total. And at this point, we're up to like 5 in-person meetings.
Yeah.
I just wonder if we could, rely more on virtual meetings for task 3.
It would seem to me as though they should be directed to wherever a Zoom meeting can replace an in-person meeting, that should take place.
Yeah, I would agree.
Because they may be overlapping some here where they have to come out.
Right.
Right. Especially the distance they're traveling and the costs related to travel.
But maybe we could say 2 in person and 4 virtual if we need 6 altogether. I mean,
Yeah,
rather than
exactly.
2 and 3.
Yeah.
Or 1 and 5,
Or
something
whatever.
like that. Yeah.
Well, but yeah.
Well, like Christina said, wherever Zoom meetings can replace in-person meetings, we'd like them
Right.
to do that.
Yeah, perfect. Been to a lot of roll your sleeves up Zoom meetings. It works very well.
Yeah, it does. And it saves everybody a lot, or them especially a lot of time, us a lot of cost.
So am I right that under task 3, the only recommendation for reducing the cost is there? Is there anything else that were specifically, I'm just, for the minutes, is there any other specific
That's not
suggestions?
gonna Take a lot off the $80,000.
Yeah, it won't take a lot off the 80,000, no.
Well, we can, again, in a whole process for negotiation, we'll ask, is there anything else they feel we can pare down?
Yeah, yeah, I think I would throw it back in their lap.
Yeah.
They're the ones that, I'm sure they've given us their top proposal, so if we say, can you go back and trim a little bit, where would you think we could probably do? I mean, maybe we can, 60 man-hours of communication tools or whatever, that, maybe that could be down to 40 hours or, whatever. I mean, how did they get there? So maybe that's the question, is how did you get to, your assumption of 60 hours based on, what? And how could we quantify that?
The cost estimates is schedule, I think it's going to take some time. I think we need those.
This is task 4.
There's no way to pare any of that down to suggest anything.
Well, I'm not born a long time ago, never used the term cost estimate. In my field, you always hired a professional cost estimator. There's a lot of liability associated whenever a number linger in the lips, so they're going to have to hire a cost estimator.
Which is
to pay.
TCI.
GCI, they've got that listed.
And so that's a cost that they asked TCI to provide, and that's a cost I assume they got back with their 20% markup.
And I would again say, it doesn't seem as though that would be an in-person meeting.
That's true. That's task 4 under 4.
Yeah. Again, I think a general term all the way through is that's increase Zoom, decrease in personal.
Okay. I would agree. Anybody else?
And then task number 5, operating cost. They said at their interview that they can only give us a range, ballpark. And they're going to have to ask their HVAC sub-consultant for that number. So again, this is an outside consultant providing.
How accurate can that even be with it when square footage isn't known and what we're wanting for green design and so
Well, I think the
forth?
square footage at that point in time would be known. They couldn't give you anything, but
Okay.
they would know it's a, 6,000 square foot office and so many square feet of bay, and make some assumptions about insulation, and they're gonna say it's gonna cost between X and Y.
They're talking about a rough estimate. from their
Right, they said a
consultant, right?
ballpark, they'll give us a range, they could not give us anything accurate, because the only way to get accurate is to design the exact system that you're going to
Right,
install.
right.
The exact
Yeah, we'll be there at that
installation,
point,
number
yeah.
of windows you have, and it's very complicated. And that's something I think, Charlie mentioned that we're probably gonna need, is there a legal requirement that we have an estimated operating cost, or it's something that the public is really gonna want to understand?
I know that,
I believe it's in the capital requirements.
Okay, so it's something that we have to have.
So the ongoing costs of the,
At least the initial costs of what it costs to maintain.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think it will be a question for, a legitimate question for the public.
I think so too, and I think it could be to our advantage because, the old town hall, this part now is so,
Yeah.
and, the heat's just, the winter, the AC is going out, the summer, the AC is going out, and the winter, the heat is just going right out those windows. It costs a lot of money
Mhm.
to operate those buildings, not to mention, I don't know what the fire department is, but there's a lot of unneeded space there that's getting used. And so we might actually show that even though it might be a bigger building, but it will cost less.
Well,
I guess I would wonder though, should task 6 precede projected operating costs? I mean, to determine how green design would affect one way or the other, what the operating costs are.
Well, I think that's
Or do they
the
just go hand
question
in
that,
hand?
I think we sort of clarified that in our Zoom meeting was, when you talk green design, it can go from A to B, and they're primarily going to discuss options. If they chose option A, geotechnical, it's probably gonna cost, X number of dollars to install it, and it may decrease our operating cost by Y. So, photovoltaics, or, I don't know what the other options would be, but rainwater harvesting, but.
If it's just going to be, the green is just going to be something they discuss, I mean, that's something you would do in architectural, when you're actually building a building. you
Correct.
Put those in, and to spend $5,000 on something, they're going to say, well, you can have a permeable, parking lot, or you can have super insulated, those are all options that they're going to say, but for $5,000, I think it's not worth it. You can just say that, green's going to add like 5% onto the budget. That's about what it costs to do a green building, but it doesn't mean it's not going to be an efficient building. You're still going to have an energy efficient building with, mechanical systems that are energy efficient, which doesn't have anything to do with, like a green design. And at this point, to spend the extra $5,000, I don't know if will be a way we could cut back.
Yeah, I think the reason we put it in was, I think everyone, rightfully so,
Right.
is concerned
I think
about,
everyone's concerned about that.
are you gonna
yes.
have environmental aspects of your building?
Yeah.
And so we want to be able to have some
Yeah.
place to insert that into the final report.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we're gonna have a final report from HKT, and they need to insert something on there. We think it's important that they insert something on green. I don't know, like I say, they'll need $5,000 worth of a paragraph saying that these are green
I mean, they
options.
could say, these are some green options that you can add to your building without spending $5,000.
Right.
Just say, these are options.
Yeah.
They look at the building they've designed and say, well, you could do this, this, and this. And, I think, for $5,000, and it's just going to be, it's not going to be exhaustive research into green design. It just,
And why not be in a report?
Yeah. I think back on task 3, under the conceptual design, which is that big $79,000 thing, there's a paragraph in there. HKT and GGD. This is on, I don't know, this is toward the It's about 1, 2, 3,
Page
half a
5.
dozen bullets up from the end of
Right.
4. Anyway, they'll meet virtually once with the building committee to discuss systems options and green design options. And GGD will then prepare narratives for proposed building systems based on based on that discussion. So it sounds like we're gonna start talking about green
Seems like
stuff
it's-
back in
It's already,
task 3, right? I mean, some of these are gonna, like you said before, maybe gonna overlap a little bit. I think just I guess I would just like us to encourage, I would like to encourage us to not consider green design. Only and this I'm wearing my grant committee hat on, because there definitely would be money out there for grants for anything related to any kind of energy conservation and green design, I'm pretty sure. I think in fact, Williamsburg, I'm pretty sure, got a grant from the MVP, the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness
They did.
Program, just for their HVAC system. Wasn't for any of the building, but it was just for their, heating, cooling system and stuff. So there's, we're gonna need lots of money from anywhere, right, eventually.
Also,
so.
in the one stop, wasn't that right in the request under the narratives? I think there was something about our youth considering green.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Isn't that in
It's a
there
question,
too?
I think, on a lot of things.
On a
now.
lot, yeah,
When you're
okay.
looking for state grants or federal, it's just another nightmare. But
Eversource has a lot of programs
Also.
for mass save, and
Yeah.
for commercial buildings.
Right.
And for different types of pumps, and
Mhm.
maybe go to give you more money for heat pumps as
Exactly.
opposed
Yeah.
to regular conventional
Yeah.
HVAC, but that's not part of a green design.
Mhm.
That's.
I'm glad you brought that up, because somebody told me recently, and I'm not really sure I'm going to remember this exactly as to who told me, but Eversource sometimes wants to support a project that says they're community focused. They might want to throw in some money, specifically
Right.
Eversource might want to throw in some kind of money towards something like
Like if
this.
we had a conventional heating system for the, where the garages, where the fire trucks are, and they may put money for the radiant heating in the floor, because that will be more efficient, lower, boiler water temperature, and you'll get more money back from your condensing boilers and that type of thing, so they may be, but there's certain parts of the program that they, at certain times of the year, they pick certain things that they want to fund, so we'll have to see what's available.
So Mark, are you saying that the options, really the options for the green design would come at a later stage when the building is actually designed and we would learn through various means what could be used?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they would be involved in a feasibility study, maybe they would, but generally you have to fill out an application to apply for this is what, this is what we're doing, this is what we're looking for. But, those type of programs are available, like Chris was saying.
So what should we do with task 6 as far as trying to pare it down? Are we able to pare it down?
under task 6, it says that they're going to
Yeah, they
meet with
say
building
there's no
committee as
meeting.
part of task 3, so they're already saying they're
Yeah,
accomplishing.
there's no meeting under task 6.
So can we say, do we really need that?
Well, it's already addressed. I would
Yeah.
say that the negotiators, these 3, would challenge that cost altogether and say that it is already in,
Task 3.
it is encompassed within task 3.
I would agree.
I think just to give some options seemed like a little high.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, we're picking pennies out of the $80,000.
yeah.
Dollars important. And the comprehensive final report,
Before that,
Well, what about
No,
task
that's
7?
Existing facilities,
jumping here.
front test 7.
So they're saying it's not to develop an in-depth existing conditions report, but to demonstrate to the community that the existing police and fire have exceeded their useful life and no longer meet the needs. Again, to me, that task in a way feels like it ought to come earlier in the process. I don't know. And they did say these are not necessarily
Right, I don't think it's
chronological order, so
sequential.
that might be a question for them, maybe, on the call, would be to say, you know, do you see any advantage of putting task 7 earlier in the process? And by the way, we've got information already from Williamsburg and Granby, so
Yeah.
how can we?
Yeah, and again, I don't think these are sequential.
Yeah.
These are tasks, and they are, I think they're.
When I first read it, I thought they were, and then I realized I don't think they.
But I think our committee discussion earlier was we need to have that very clear in a final document, so somehow now it needs to get in there, and I think we're probably capable, and we probably revise the old proposal, which sort of clearly demonstrates some of the needs, but where do we pull together that information, and how do we weave it into the final document? That's the question. I think that's what they're proposing to do that for
Right.
us.
Yeah, so they're saying a deliverable is a report or a PowerPoint presentation comparing our existing to the new facilities of Granby and Williamsburg.
I think part of our job is to demonstrate to the community that the need is real, and we have to have a place.
But wouldn't
to
a
show
tour of the existing buildings
You're not going to get the
convince?
whole town in tour.
Well, we're not going to get the whole town weighing in on this
Yeah.
anyway, maybe 200.
We can't even get people to come in to vote, so you could.
Well, we are talking about a video program.
Anyway.
Videoed program of what we have. And we also should be thinking about, you know, having several small opportunities for people to come in, whether it's, you know, like 5 times at the library or something like that, where, you know, different people could come in if they, you know, we can only constantly advertise the ability to come in and look at something, look at posters, look at pictures, watch the video, have discussions. Is it reasonable? I don't know, but I mean, we have to kind of facilitate that, I think.
I'm wondering for task 7, given that you all have information already on Granby and Williamsburg, could, I mean, I think, you know, PowerPoint or something is not a bad idea as a deliverable, but, because that could be used in, you know, town presentation, but if you have whatever you've already gathered, could we give that to them and say, okay, this is what we know so far. Could you, you know, what else would you do besides this or something? I mean, I don't know, I mean, it doesn't feel like they need to spend their time doing other comparisons.
That's what I've always
Yeah.
thought, and I know there's a justification for it, but it just, I can't.
I know where this came from, though. We put this in the RFQ.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
So
which makes sense.
are we looking back now and going, is this what we need to pay for right now? That's
Right.
basically what we're
Our
saying.
concern was, again, educating the public about,
Yeah.
this is other communities similar, this is what they have, this is what we have, we need to do something.
So could we say that we would do the PowerPoint and we give them the PowerPoint to insert in their final report? I mean,
I think that's a good
I mean,
solution. think that's
can't we
a good
manage a
alternative,
PowerPoint?
you know?
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure even about comparing Williamsburg, because Williamsburg is considerably smaller. than
Yeah.
Southampton.
I was just there over the weekend. It's great.
Granby, yes, they're almost identical, maybe Abbey, maybe as another comparison, but Williamsburg is considerably smaller. And they don't have, they have a full-time police chief, and I think a full-time patrol officer there. And I don't think they have any full-time
Anything
fire
else?
department members.
Really?
Are we proposing to eliminate this from HKT? And we'll modify that we will give them a PowerPoint to insert in the final report.
Well, who is going to do the PowerPoint? If we, if.
Yeah.
I
not-
can
not-
certainly work on that. I can work on a PowerPoint.
If you start a draft, maybe we can help contribute to it.
Sure.
Happy to help, yeah.
Okay?
And hopefully the new fire chief will also be able to.
We just have to make sure they're agreeable to put this in their presentation.
That's true,
Yeah.
that
We have
is
to put
true.
Maybe tax 7 is that,
Right.
you know, we developed the PowerPoint, the ones that are agreeable to put it in. to-
That would save some money right there. Because I think you've got the, you know, it's going to be certainly, it's got to be much more relevant to have information from places that are close by that people are going to recognize, right? So it doesn't matter what they've done on another community. I mean, we need it from local communities that people will identify with. So I think the more that you've got the knowledge and information, I'd say we ought to be able to pull it together.
Okay.
So then the final report was the last thing?
think we need it.
Yeah, we need it, and I'm not sure exactly how they came up with their number. I don't know if it's high, low, or very reasonable.
$23,500. After all the above, boy, that is kind of high, isn't it?
Well, but we also have to realize that $75,000 got us 0 responses. So these do cost a lot.
This is where they attend town meetings and make presentations. which
Right.
would be important.
Yeah, I see that. They're gonna at this point do a PowerPoint.
So they got a draft report and a final report and a PowerPoint, other deliverables.
And then finally do an in-person presentation at town meeting. We're gonna need them there for sure. So, how can we pare it down?
Well, or could we ask them just to break down the cost a little bit?
Yeah,
Yeah.
break it down a little more.
Again, Cindy, I don't think it's up to us to pare it down. I think we have to dump it back in their lap stuff.
And some costs may not be able to be
Yeah,
pared
Right.
down.
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Then room data sheets and programming, I think that's getting a little
We don't need that option.
those were the add-ons.
detailed, so we don't think we need.
We don't need additional public meetings. There's an awful lot that they propose they're gonna do.
One question I'm asking is the one in-person presentation at town meeting. Do we actually have a presentation at town meeting by now? The town meeting wouldn't really, time wouldn't allow that, right?
They can't, I mean, I've seen it happen before.
We've done it before.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
At town
I've
meeting?
done that before, yeah.
Or you can call that into reserve at a point in time at a town meeting in the future when the funding is actually requested.
Yeah. It may be 6, 8 months, year later that we actually need it. I think having them present at a town meeting would help us a lot.
Yes.
For questions?
Yeah.
So they had proposed originally 3 public meetings. We got rid of the one in 0. There's now this one in 8, and there was one in 3. Past 3, according to what they've said here. So 3 was the whole conceptual design one. So that's that one. So there'll end up being 2 community meetings, really, right?
Oh, you're saying community
You mean
meetings?
public?
Community
I'm
meetings.
lost. Community meetings?
Public meeting, 3 public community meetings are included in task 0, 3, and 8.
Right.
That's what they're saying.
So
We wiped out 0.
Right,
That's right.
So now we have 2 community meetings
with them.
with them, including the larger
Right.
community.
Right.
I think
But they
that's-
say, as an add-on, additional in-person presentations to the community can be provided if we determine additional marketing would benefit.
I don't think we need more than 3 where they're present. I don't know what
There's only 2 now. We wiped out 1. We
Okay,
have 2.
well,
Yeah.
even just 2.
I think
Hard to know. I mean,
yeah, could that be, right,
could that be
Left
negotiated later
open.
on? I mean, as we,
yeah.
Would there be funding if we've gone above what's already available? Can we ask for some additional funding if it was necessary? Or do we have to decide all this ahead of time?
theoretically, we're trying to take this and pare it down so it's within our funding envelope, right? So that there should be a little bit of extra.
For unforeseens.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, the additional add-on is not, additional public meeting was another $5,800, or public meetings, community presentations, that wasn't specified as to how many. but-
Well, if the task is 0, those are the same figures, so that would imply 1.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
Their hourly rates, you look on page 10,
Yeah.
maybe the principals and the associates, wow. With the staff, 120 an hour?
Oh, that doesn't surprise me.
No, that's not unusual.
This is normal.
I'm coming from the medical field, that's all.
Unfortunately, this is pretty normal.
That's not their pay, that's their.
Yeah, I get you. Okay.
So, if I could summarize a little bit, we made several suggestions, and we're going to get a summary from our secretary, and Ed and I are going to,
And Chris.
pardon?
And Chris.
And Chris are going to provide a consultation with HKT to ask them these questions, if they can revise their proposal and clarify it.
And reduce it.
Well, yes.
I
With
would-
the intent of it being reduced.
Yes, and again, I would emphasize significantly.
Yeah.
So that's really the summary. We're reducing, we're asking them to modify, in task 0, modify their meetings to a 2-hour Zoom meeting versus an in-person meeting. That's task 0.
Without the community.
And no community.
Yeah, and that's correct, and no community. And task 1, we didn't have any recommendations for change. Task 2, again, reconsider the costing, reinterpret based on what we consider to be essentially available subcontractor site, essentially available information and data for the subcontractor site visit. Task 3, just to clarify, we know that there'll be 2 different sites they're going to come to with 2 different block diagrams. And wherever a Zoom meeting can replace an in-person meeting, we'd like them to consider that and ask them basically what else could be trimmed. And task 4, I just wrote down, make their meeting proposals to Zoom meetings. Task 5, we didn't make any specific recommendations to change. Task 6, the green options. Perhaps this cost proposal is actually accomplished under task 3, and therefore do we need a separate task 6? That's the green design. And I just wrote down that Eversource may have grants for which we may apply at some point. That's different outside of this proposal. Task 7, and we wondered if we could pare down any of the costs related, because we would be proposing to do a PowerPoint that they might insert within their final report, if they agree.
Wouldn't be pared down, we would eliminate that. We'd eliminate
The full cost of 7, that's what I meant. They're down to
Yeah.
full
Yeah.
cost of 7.
Right, and we prepare it and ask them if they can insert it.
Okay. By providing what we have, and we will do a PowerPoint. Task 8, what we basically ask is for them to break down the costs a little bit more. We do agree that they should be present at a town meeting, and that Ed, Chris, and Mark will consult with them and try to discuss any kind of negotiation possible.
Was that a motion?
Is there any corrections to that before the motion? I mean, these are the minutes. Any reduction? Do you want a motion? Is everybody, all right, I move that this summary speaks to what we're looking for at this point in time in order to supply the 3 people that are going to be talking with HKT with some information from us.
So moved?
I moved.
Oh, you moved? Well, then
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Motion made and seconded. Any comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And it passes unanimously.
Okay.
So just as a comparison, I look at the 2 principals, so both, they're $230 an hour, right? And in that envisioning meeting, they're considering 25 hours, if you will, of time for that meeting.
Right.
That's, for one meeting, is maybe 6 hours each, right? With travel time, you're looking at 12, so they doubled that.
Right.
Oh, that's good news.
So they're also counting in their prep time.
Prep time, and then it also included modifying the schedule at that task 0. So they had extra time in there. And they always had a buffer.
Yeah.
So are you basically saying that when it's all said and done, because they've added in a buffer, there may be some, they may say, we thought it was going to be 25 hours, but it was only 22 hours, so therefore we're reducing it by X number hundreds of dollars because we didn't need to use 25 hours. Is that what happens, Mark? That they would come back and say, we gave you the buffer number and now we know it's a little bit less?
No, typically they've given you a proposal.
Yeah.
And maybe task 1, they budgeted $10,000, but they wound up spending $15,000.
So they came up
Task 2, they budgeted, so they lost X number of dollars.
I see.
The other tasks may get a little, they'll make lose a little. Hopefully, at the end of the day, when you put the whole package together, they came out okay, and we came out okay.
How do they come up with odd numbers, $358, $805, these are after the thousands, but,
They put it in a spreadsheet. There's a large spreadsheet with
Okay.
all the tasks and who they're going to assign a task to and what their rates are.
oh, okay.
And what the markups are.
Excel's there.
Every task
There you
is
go.
costed.
It spits it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I just also want to let the committee know that HKT asked for some amendments, edits to the legal template of the contract. I sent those off to our town council. Some of them, they said, yeah, they're probably right, or we'll agree with those. Some of them, they said, should make these changes, and some of them, they said, here's some counter language. So I have sent that back to HKT, and the ball is in their court on that right now.
What kinds of things were they wanting to change? I mean, is that,
Oh, they wanted one section 9.4 removed because according to them, it contained the same information and, shall we say, regulations as 9.3. Legal said, well, we don't really agree with that. If they want to remove 9.4, here's some language that we would suggest adding into 9.3 to cover some of those things. They wanted negligent added in a couple places and some other things removed, and legal said you shouldn't remove negligent. Their addition, they shouldn't add their addition of negligent. Here's some counter language for to go in there that might suffice with those. So.
Just to go back a little cost, I did do some calls on their references. Tewksbury Fire Department, they said they had an excellent relationship with HKT. They did a wonderful job. They ran some headaches because of what the committee needed, not headaches, but additional, so they, asked for additional services which they provided. And they have retained them as their on-call architect, so they're very pleased with their services. I also talked to North Reading, the chair of the Facilities Plan Committee. She said they did a really great job. She's also head of the Finance Committee. So I was asking about, did they come back with extras? If they're an hour over, they come begging back for some more money. She said that she didn't experience anything at all. Anytime they had extra money, it was because the town requested them to do additional services. So they didn't seem to be penny pinching. I've worked with some architects and firms that, we spent, 4.5 hours for 4 hours, and I want an extra half hour for the fee. So they didn't seem to be nitpicky in that perspective.
And that was North Reading?
North Reading Town Hall renovations they did. I called Abby Holbert. She's obviously a small town. She also asked if we were having a lot of fun out here. She just had read in the papers about East Hampton school committee.
Oh, yeah, that,
ongoing?
quite a different circumstance, but,
Well, that's good to know.
So when should we try to connect with these people?
Yeah, that's a technical question about when do we get together and call.
as soon as possible.
Yeah, I guess we'll get together. I'm pretty open, but Ed and Chris, and set up maybe have Ed set up another Zoom meeting. Is that the appropriate way to do it?
Sure.
Yeah. And we'll ask that Cindy provide us a written confirmation.
I will do that.
meeting. So as soon as Cindy sends that to Ed, and Chris and I will have Ed set up a
Okay.
Zoom meeting.
Well, yeah, we'll compile our availability and send it off to them.
Okay?
Do we need to be concerned about these legal technicalities that you were mentioning? Should that be resolved before the Zoom meeting?
I think they can go on concurrently.
You do? You don't anticipate a deal breaker kind of circumstance?
Could be, but like I say, why wait and find out?
Aren't legal negotiations kind of common? Would you expect that? I would.
I'm going to put it this way, Christine. We sent them a copy of the draft contract. As far as I'm concerned, they shouldn't be asking for anything. They had that before they responded.
Okay.
And typically, that's in the response, the RFQ, they ask questions if things can be modified. We had some applicants do that. They said certain things could be modified. Okay, so we'll get that scheduled and try to get a negotiated cost for HKT. Next item on the agenda is, you can let Chris take over. This one is the status of the one-stop shop application.
Well, we're working on it,
Yeah.
so thanks for all the contributions so far. And I know, Cindy, you put in some, Kate from our grant committee, and Diana have chipped in on things too. And so I'm going to devote most of tomorrow to try and see how it fits into the online form. I
Okay.
tried it. I don't know if you guys had a chance to do more on that section 6. But
You give me the bad news. It was going to.
yeah, it was really
Yeah.
unfortunate. There's a whole section where
Oh, really? It's necessary?
it really does
necessary.
require all this weird economic justification that it's really hard to write something for something that's really in the future. It's like, it's this interim step. It's not the feasibility study that we're trying to do now. It's not the construction. It's that in-between time that we're trying to imagine what it's going to be. And to answer these questions is a bit of a challenge, but anyway, we'll do the best we can.
And one of the
Put it in.
questions was, is the land secured? And if not, will it be secured before you get the grant money?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, sometimes, and with these online portals, sometimes you answer yes or no, and then it directs you, left or right. And so I was really hoping it would let us
Skip 6.
skip 6, but it didn't. So anyway, we'll do the best we can. It's due in on Friday, so we'll plug away at it.
Okay.
I'm going to add some more things too.
Yeah, no, by all means.
Started,
Yeah.
But not on 6 at least.
I looked at, that was a 6.
I know.
Okay, any other business that we need to discuss before we schedule our next meeting?
I just want to ask, actually, Chris, in terms of the fact that we have one open position, and that's the Finance Committee is supposed to send an appointee, and I just think for the minutes, could you let us know the status of what we can expect from there? I know John Lumber, will John Lumber be the select board appointee to the Finance Committee this time, or we don't know yet?
Possibly. We haven't made those allocations yet. We're going to discuss that on our Tuesday night select board meeting.
Okay.
We decided to give the new members a first meeting to at least get a sense of what committees they might want to be on. But John has been the liaison to finance last year, and I would assume he would kind of want to do it again. And I don't think, well, like you said, we haven't really gotten the results of the election.
I don't even know if we have a
understanding-
official finance committee.
My understanding was Donna Whiteley got elected, so that means Donna and Becky Plimpton are still on there. And there was a third person I thought who was a write-in, but last I heard from Lucy, or she alluded to it at the meeting last week, that somebody didn't get back to her within 72 hours to confirm that they wanted the position. So therefore, I have a feeling that might have just been somebody's one-time joke to just write in somebody who had no intention of ever being on the committee.
Well, they have to be like what, 6 or something minimal? to
No.
be a-
There's 5, they need 3 for a quorum. So
Yeah.
it means the select
No, I
board
mean, in
votes.
terms of to be a
Write-in-
write-in,
write-in
it has to be
candidate.
more than one person. It can only be one person?
As far as I'm aware.
Lucy told me one.
Yeah.
One person can be
Yeah.
written in and be voted in.
Oh,
That's why write-ins are a little bit scary too. People want to do away with the caucus, but you know, at least you get some names on the floor. Anyway,
right.
so I don't know that anybody else is on there. So at this point, they may only have the 2 plus a select board liaison. And John is not a voting member? No, he's a
No.
liaison, so he's not a voting member.
Hmm.
But anyway, we'll be meeting on Tuesday to decide committee assignments, and we'll know some more about that. But yeah, I see if we can get somebody can be a liaison. I know CPC was looking for a finance person too, and a few other committees need them, so it's been a challenge. Yeah. So, just, can I ask another dumb question? Maybe it's more of Ed, but with the whole ending up of the senior center study, has that land been decided what they chose that they want to work on? I mean, they've gotten.
Yes, that's their first choice.
Okay.
Now, the next piece is the attorneys have asked for our set forms from the nonprofits that were listed.
Mhm.
Those are being sent off to court to see if the court agrees with the 2 attorneys that the town has met the requirements of the will, and we would get the $2.25 or $3 million.
Right. And if all that works, which who knows how long that'll take, right, to figure that out.
Right.
If all that works, then that would be the one property that would be.
Well, that's their first recommendation. So at that point in time, now remember, the person that wants to sell it, I think wants 700 and some change for it.
Right.
The only value that we have established on it is the assessed value, which is, I think it's somewhere around 130 or 160,000. We cannot pay as a town more than what we can establish it's worth. So, to get between the 2, it would start a process of the property owner getting a appraisal on it, the town getting an appraisal on it, and see where they line up.
Find where they're living.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You know, what that dollar amount might be. Are we still,
Okay.
how have we gotten to the point that they sell it? You know, are they too far apart, you know, 2
Got it.
pieces far apart?
Okay. So in other words, it's still, I guess my ultimate end question was that that property is still on the books for this purpose, for this committee?
Technically, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Any other
No.
business?
So should we try to aim sometime, I don't know, look at your schedule, but I can be free later in the week next week, not at the beginning of the week, probably,
Talking about for our Zoom meeting?
but, yeah, with HKT, I mean, I could be like Thursday-ish or something, Wednesday, Thursday maybe Wednesday, Thursday. So, see what your schedule is for that. Make a HKT call? Sure.
You have a event meeting scheduled for Thursday 11.
Oh, we do, as a, yeah, sort of a precaution, hopefully. We may not need it, I mean, I scheduled it just so we'd have one, but we could do it like an afternoon, maybe Zoom or something with HKT if we had.
I'm available
Yeah,
on
okay.
Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, send me your preferred times and I'll reach out for both Wednesday and Thursday.
Wednesday, I'm wide open from 8 to 8.
That's pretty good.
And for scheduling for our next public building committee meeting, any recommendation? Typically, we meet
Well-
on Mondays, but
Well, after you've had the Zoom session, after you've had the
Yeah.
negotiation session.
and we want to probably have negotiation and have them a chance to get back to us, rather than just have an empty meeting again.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I would say schedule it for 2 weeks.
At least 2.
Maybe the 19th.
Or schedule it once you have some idea when
Yeah.
Do we have to schedule it now?
No, I just typically like to get the input from the
Okay.
committee meetings. if they're
But also,
available.
what would be on the agenda? Is that going to be the meeting that we hold with HKT? Or what else? Do we need to meet prior to that? For the first meeting we hold with HKT?
Good point. I mean, hopefully we're going to ask for a negotiator price, hopefully get a return negotiator price. And then I don't know how we officially sign, yes, this is okay.
Well,
And who signs that?
What we would want is another PSBC meeting after that negotiation, and hopefully we'd have another number back, so maybe the 12th, at the latest, the 19th, and then we could have a recommendation to the select board for their meeting on the 20th.
Okay.
However,
We schedule for
So the 12th? That seemed like a lot.
We cancel as necessary or
Yeah, cancel as
revise as
necessary.
necessary? Okay with me. And that would be 4:30?
It seems like it's been working.
Well, has it been working? It's the third meeting Charlie's missed. Is he having conflicts with his business requirements?
I think last meeting was a Tuesday, so I mean,
No, today's a Tuesday.
Today's
today's
Last-
Tuesday. That may have been part of it, because he's not here today.
I don't know. Does anybody, did he hear from you? Did you hear from him?
He just said he had a conflict, he had to meet somewhere. He was
He had
another.
a meeting with the Chester Select Board
Right.
on that last meeting.
The last one, so
Yeah.
today, he didn't say?
He,
He had a conflict.
Conflict, that
I
was
won't say
it.
what was
yeah.
tonight.
So he let you know then? That he couldn't- He let you know he couldn't make it?
Yeah, he sent an email to me, just said he had a
Oh, he
conflict.
did? Okay.
Yeah.
so we're talking the 12th, maybe?
The 12th, 4:30 here. And-
But to be canceled if there's
To be
no-
canceled if no-
yeah, because
don't have
that
anything.
last
Yeah.
meeting was a waste.
Yeah.
We were hoping.
But at the very latest, till the 19th, so that we'd have it in time for select board.
Mhm.
And if we do postpone it, we'll postpone it to the 19th.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, so we set the meeting.
Do you want me to post that for you? Do you
Pardon?
want me to post it for you?
Sure, if you wouldn't
Okay,
mind. That'd be
sure.
great. And is there
I move to adjourn.
Second?
motion made and seconded? Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much for coming.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.